Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today, per request of a viewer, we're going to be talking about TradingView, which is a very powerful charting platform that's used by day traders. Now, specifically, this charting platform has a feature that's very powerful that will allow us to interact with our own custom Python code. And that feature is called alerts and webhooks. And TradingView webhooks allow us to create alerts on specific market conditions or signals and send them to a web server that runs our own code, and then we can process that signal however we want. We can perhaps write a script that sends an API request to a broker like Alpaca or TD Ameritrade API and order stocks based on a signal. And that way we don't have to be physically at our computer in order to take action on the markets. We can just code our logic in advance and then go about our day. And even if we're not at a computer watching the markets, this will just handle it. We have our rules created, and we have some code that runs and places orders for us. So we have a bot that we can just put up there in the cloud. So a lot of the videos I've made so far have been like us manually creating charts and WebSockets and data feeds on our desktop and placing requests to broker APIs from the desktop. But I haven't done a lot of videos going end to end, creating some rules and then deploying these rules to the cloud. So that's what I'm going to do today. And so let's go ahead and get started. But before we dive into TradingView, I'm trying a new experiment today, and that is going to be, I'm actually, since I think this is going to be a pretty good video and it might drive some traffic to TradingView, I've never talked to them before, but I noticed they have an affiliate program, and so I decided to sign up for them for that, and I'm going to put the link in the description and in the comments. So in case I drive a lot of traffic to TradingView, I wouldn't mind getting a cut of that myself. So I'm going to just put a link down there, and if you decide to follow along, then you can click and sign up for TradingView that way if you want to support the channel. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. It's just a link, right? And I'm going to put it in the description. And so if you visit that link, it's going to look just like a chart here. And so I'm going to use this type of chart whenever I'm showing the tutorial. And then so you can either click like take any action like save, and it'll ask you to sign up. So you can sign up there, or you can just click join there. So that's it. If you like the video and want to sign up, click that link. It would be a great way to support the channel. All right. Okay, so let's get started with the lesson. So I have TradingView open. As I mentioned, it's a platform that allows you to follow all these prices and markets in real time. It has all the standard stock market indexes and tickers. It has cryptocurrency. It has Forex. It has any type of market data you can think of. So I'm going to go on markets here, and I'm going to click stocks, and then you can see I can just click there and see, oh, here's a bunch of large cap stocks. Actually, I'm going to type a symbol directly, SPY, since it's a popular symbol that's followed, and you can see the market just opened. I'm up bright and early. It's not 6:56 a.m. On the West Coast over here in San Francisco. You can see the market's open, S&P 500 up again. I'm going to click full featured chart here, and you see we got this nice candlestick chart here, and you see SPY gapped up today above 2,900 here. So yeah, so the market is recovering so far from the depths of March. And so I have this chart open, and let's say we're like right in the middle of the bottom and the all-time highs at S&P 500, 3,400, right? S&P 500 was 3,400 in February, and then it was like 2,200 in March, right? And so we're kind of right in this middle zone, and I'm deciding I want to make a strategy, decide whether to flip bullish or bearish. And so let's say this is the minute by minute chart, but let's say I look at the weekly chart going back quite a ways, and I remember in 2017, right, the market had this about 30% increase, and then in January of 2018, right, there was this final little move up. Look, was it like January 20 something, right? It hit 287 or so, right? And so now I look at my chart right here, and wow, this looks like an important level, right? Traders are always like, oh, this is an important level, right? So you see, whenever we hit that level, sold off, went up again to about 292 or so, sold off again, and then, yeah, so you see there's been a lot of action between the bulls and the bears around this particular level. And you see after this huge sell-off, right, we've rallied all the way back up to like 290, right? Or let's see what we got, 290, right? And so we have this right here, and you see we're at this critical juncture, right? So now what I'm going to do is say I'm long when we break above a certain level, right? Or I get short and buy an inverse ETF or something, right? Whenever we fall below, like back below this level, right? So how would I do that? Do I sit here and watch this chart all day and wait for that to happen and kind of execute and try to place an order at the right time? No. I mean, I don't have to do that. I don't need to sit here all day and watch this, right? I'm going to set it up this morning right now in like 20 minutes, right? And get it up and running, and I never have to think about it again. So that's the idea here. How do we do that? So TradingView has this feature called alerts, and I've seen a couple other videos about this, but no one's really shown how to use this effectively, in my opinion. So let me show you what alerts do. I'm going to create an alert here, and I'm going to say I want an alert when SPY is crossing up above a certain level, and I'm going to say that level, yeah. So I'll leave the default here. You can specify any level, right? And it looks like I can show a pop-up whenever SPY crosses up above 289.77. So I'm going to create that alert. And I'm also going to create another alert here. I'm going to do, where does it go? I'm going to hit that plus sign, and I'm going to say crosses down, and I'm going to say crosses down below 290, let's say. And I'm going to use this every time button. I want any time it goes up and down, I want to be notified, and I'm going to use this pop-up, right? So let's do that, and I'm going to do every time here too. All right, and then we're going to wait here and then see if this gets triggered. Kind of depends what happens. This is real time right now, so I'm watching this. I don't even know what's going to happen. So if we cross above 289.77, we're going to get a pop-up here, right? And while we're waiting for that to happen, I just want to mention TradingView has very powerful indicators and signals, and people. It's also like a social platform, so people share trading ideas. They publish these scripts, like Pine scripts that they've written. That's like a proprietary scripting language they've written. And so traders write these scripts and they publish them here. They share ideas, and there's this huge library of different indicators that you can use. And so you're not limited to just simple things like crossing up and down. That's just what I'm using for simplicity, because we can all understand that easily. Where you can put any of these indicators or write custom scripts to trigger these alerts, right? So I'm going to change this since it looks like the market's already went down a little bit. I'm going to say crossing down below 289. Right, so I'll do that. It's already down. There you go. Okay, so I got the alert that SPY crossed down below 289. So you can see that instantly let me know when this candlestick went below 289, and it notified me on the screen, right? So that is great if I'm sitting here at the screen. But pretend, I'm an alcoholic. I like to go day drinking, hang out at the pool, right? I don't want to, I'm not going to be looking at my desktop all day. And although they have options for like SMS text messages, right, and a bunch of other, ways to get notified, it still requires me to receive that message and then go, let me take action, right? So the idea of this channel is we want to automate trading. And so what we need for that is there's a new feature they added last year, and it's called and I'm going to turn that off for a second. They added this feature called Webhook URL. And what that does, rather than sending you an email or showing a pop-up, it will actually send that message to a web address here, right? So if I had mysite.com/buy stock, right, I could send this message to that address. And when my code receives that request, that message, then it can process that and do whatever we want. So I could have it buy stock at that point using our broker APIs that we've covered in this channel. Or I could have it, order a pizza or ring a bell or whatever I can do in Python code. I'm not limited to what's provided by TradingView in PineScript. I can do anything in a webhook. And if you're not familiar, a webhook is like what it sounds, right? It's a way for us to hook into this code here, right? We don't have access to the source code for TradingView. We don't work there, but they've provided this hook where we can insert our own code here, right? And customize the software to work how we want. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to build this webhook and deploy it to the cloud, and it'll be there 24 hours a day. And while we're walking around and sleeping, it can receive requests and do things based on actions in the stock market, right? So let's go a little bit further. Now, one thing, I saw there were some tutorials on webhooks out there on YouTube, but what they don't cover, first of all, most of them are in crypto, and not everyone's into crypto. But secondly, they added additional features to this message that make it a lot more powerful. And I think the best feature they've added is these special placeholders, right? And these placeholders allow you to send variables, right? Since our program, see this message here, the way they started alerts, it just looks like a text message or an email, right? But a computer program receives a message. It wants a little more structure so that it can derive meaning from this message. And so what we can do is use these little variable placeholders. They're kind of like a template. And then when you get the message, it sends you additional data about the context of the signal or the alert that was triggered, right? So we'll know a little bit of information about the bar, like the minute bar that just finished, right, for instance. And we send that data to our program, and then we can use that to like set our buy limit or our stop loss. We can do some calculations on the message and so forth. And so instead of this type of message, right, we're going to use JSON, right? So I can actually type JSON in here, right? And so pretend I want to receive like the open, high, low, and close of the bar, right? I can use these little placeholders here, right? And if you've used like a templating language in Django or Flask or another framework, one thing I've noticed, sometimes you'll be tempted to put a space here. Make sure there's no spaces here or it won't work, right? So they have it documented, a bunch of different placeholders that you can use. So what I did was already pull those out, and I built a payload, which I'm going to put here. So I'm going to copy this. I have this on the side, and here's what it looks like. Let me pull this to the screen. All right, look at this. So now let's say my message, I want it to look like JSON, and I want it to substitute the open, high, low, and close, the ticker, volume, time window, right? So now I have a lot of data here, and I want my web message to look like that, right? So I'm going to copy this payload. Copy. All right, so that's in the window now. And so now we have a template here. And then now we still have our message. Okay, I'm going to save that. And then there you go. Okay, so I saved it and the alert was triggered. And now you'll notice instead of just receiving SPY across 289 or whatever, right? Now we have a message that's populated with information that we can run calculations on with Python, right? So now we have the open of the bar, 289.46, the high, the low, the close, and that's a JSON payload. It can post to a web URL. Our web URL can receive this JSON message, and it can process it, and then it can send like an API request to our broker URL, and then we can execute buys and sells based on that, or do whatever we want. We can pass it along to another system. We can make it draw a picture for us, whatever we want to do. So you can already see the power of the alerts and webhooks right here. And so that's amazing, right? So I'm going to use that like right now. I'm going to show you how to build that webhook URL, and we're going to make it play some buys, and I'm going to use real money just for fun, just to make this exciting. Let's see if we make or lose some money. I'm going to just do a small amount of risk, a few bucks or something, and let's build that bot, and let's get it deployed into the cloud. All right. So where are we at? So I want to create the webhook. We got a working message here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off this pop-up, and I'm going to have it send me an email, and just so we can let these continue and I don't get this pop-up. Okay, so I'm going to do save. All right, so I got an email that's going to be generated, and let's see. I'm going to turn off the webhook until we actually have a URL. So I'm going to hit save. All right, so it's triggering, and I'm going to check my email. All right. Okay, so you see we're getting all kinds of alerts. So now I'm going to copy this populated data, and we're going to use this as a test payload when we start developing our application locally. So we're going to set up a little local server with a framework called AWS Chalice, because I'm going to use AWS Lambda as our framework here, as our cloud provider here. You can use whatever server you want. If you are familiar with PHP or Java or any other technology and you know how to make a web server, then you can do that as long as you can provide a URL. So you don't have to use the same technology as me. This is just what I'm using because I find it very quick and easy. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to close my chart for a minute because it's making a sound. So let's see. I have this payload, which is great. All right, so I'm going to paste this into an editor, and so I'll have it for reference later. Hold on one more time. All right, so I have that payload for later, and we're going to use that to test our application. All right, cool. So I got that. Let's get set up with our server. Okay, so if I Google AWS Chalice, right, you'll see it's a Python serverless micro framework. Sounds great. And it's for AWS, and it uses Lambda. And what Lambda is, it allows you to deploy a function or just a snippet of code to the cloud. And with that function, you can map it to a URL and have that URL call that function. And in that function, you can have whatever logic you want, right? And sound familiar? Sounds like a webhook to me, right? And the beauty of AWS Lambda here is they don't charge you like a monthly fee to run a server. It's called serverless, right? And so they actually have a very generous free tier. I think you can execute like 1,000 requests per month and they won't charge you anything. And so we'll be able to run this trading bot for free. So that is amazing. So what am I doing? I'm going to, so first thing you do, make sure you have an AWS account, first of all, because you're going to need an AWS key so that you can hook this up to your account and deploy it to your AWS account, not mine. And then as a larger introduction, I'm going to breeze through this because I've already done a video on AWS Chalice and how to get set up with it. So if you look up on YouTube, AWS Chalice tutorial, you'll see one of the top videos is mine, and you do building an API with AWS Chalice, and this shows you how to build an API from the ground up using Chalice. So follow along. If I go too fast over this particular part, you can go back to this tutorial and follow along there and get set up again. All right, so I am going to go to my command line. So AWS Chalice here, I'm going to make sure we install it. So as in previous videos, we typically set up a virtual environment, right? And so I already have one set up. I'm going to do vin. I'm going to activate my virtual environment so it's activated. So Chalice, you install it with a pip command to like the Python package. And so I'm going to install it with pip install Chalice, right? And that installs the Chalice package in my virtual environment. So once you have Chalice installed, it gives you a command line command. So I'm going to type Chalice, and these are the different options it has. And so you see there's this one called new project. So I want to create a new project. I'm going to type Chalice new project. And what am I going to call it? TradingView webhook alert, right? So, I already have that directory. I'm going to call it TradingView webhook alerts, right? And so now that'll create a new directory called TradingView webhook alerts. Did the S. I already created one called alert. All right, so I'm in that directory, and you see there's just two simple files. Let's see what's inside those files. All right, I have Visual Studio Code open. I have an empty editor, so I'm going to use my empty editor for a bit here just so we start from scratch, right? And I'm going to open a folder, and I'm going to choose that folder I just created. All right, and then what's in there? So you have app.py, which is just bare bones hello world app. It's just a function and just one route. That's just slash. So when you hit the base of the application, the base route, it's just going to return hello world in the response. And it also has some examples here that are commented out if you want to do a post request to create a user, right? So I'm not going to mess with that yet. But what I'm going to do right out the gate is deploy this application to the cloud, right? So I'm going to type Chalice deploy. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add requests, right? And request is a Python package we've been using to make HTTP requests. So any dependencies you have on other Python packages in Chalice, you can add them to this file. So you just type the name of the package. So the only dependency we have here is requests. And so I'm going to add it to requirements.txt. And I'm going to install that package locally too. So I'm going to do pip install -r requirements.txt. Make sure we have our requirements. And then I'm going to type chalice deploy. And if I do that, it creates a deployment package with my dependencies, deploys it to AWS, and gives me a URL all in one shot, just like that. And you see in just like a minute there, we will have a webhook that's running in the cloud. So it's creating a Lambda function, it says creating REST API, and right there on the screen, it gives me a REST API URL. And then I put that in my browser, and congratulations, if you could follow that, you are able to deploy a REST API to AWS Lambda. So took no time at all, right? So we don't want hello world, right? We want something more complicated, like placing stock orders. So how do we do that? Well, it's actually not that hard. So I am going to continue on. So now that we have our dependencies and we have our app, right? All we need is this to be able to accept a post request that receives a message like the one generated by TradingView. And we want to parse that message and place an order. So let's do it. So if you see in the commented out code here, they have this example of receiving a post request. So you need to put methods equals post because TradingView is going to post the message to your web address. You're not going to just hit it in the web browser, right? So I'm going to do comma methods equals post, and I'm going to call the URL, just for the example, call it buy stock, and I'll call the function buy stock. All right, and then let's make this dictionary turn something different. So I'm going to say message, I bought the stock, right? So there's that. And then we're going to receive JSON, right? We're going to have to send it a message. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go to the Chalice documentation, and we're going to look for JSON body, right? So they have this request object that has information about the request that was sent. So it's going to have the information about the TradingView request in this case. So we're going to set a variable called request and receive app current request. So that'll be the current request coming in. And you can get the JSON body of the request like that. So I'm going to call this variable webhook message and set it equal to the request JSON body. And Chalice will automatically convert this JSON string to a Python dictionary. That way it's very easy to parse and work with the individual parts of the message. So cool. So we got a webhook message, and I'm going to say, let's see if this works. So I'm going to do webhook message, and I'm going to return the webhook message I received just right back in the response. So I'm going to do webhook message, right? Did that. So we got a post request, we have our URL and webhook message, and I'm going to test this locally first before testing it in the cloud, right? So to test this locally, what are we going to do? So there's a variety of ways. There's command line commands like curl or wget that you can use to send HTTP requests from the command line. I like to use this one called Insomnia Client. And if you download and install that, it gives you like a UI for sending and testing HTTP requests against whatever URL you want. So I like using that for testing, and I have it already. So if you don't have it, yeah, you can download it there. And so what you can do is create a new request. You see I've already been playing with this. So I'm going to do a new request just to start from scratch. And I'm going to call it TradingView Webhook Alert. And it's going to be a post request, right? And it's going to post JSON data. So I create that request, and it gets all set up for me. And so since Chalice, we want to run this locally now so that we can test locally, debug things nicely on our desktop, and once we're happy and think it works, we can deploy it right back to AWS Lambda using Chalice deploy. Okay, so I'm going to do http://, and what Chalice has is a local server setup. So if I'm in that directory, you notice one of the commands here, there was the deploy, which we already used to deploy to the cloud. We use new project to create a new project. And then there's this local command. So I'm going to do Chalice local, and it starts a local dev server, right? So now if I go to this address, right, you'll see we're actually hitting our local server. So what I want to do, just to show how that works, let me do another base route here. So at the base we can get a URL, and I'll just add the index back and just say return hello world, right? And when I save the code, it automatically reloads the server, and then I hit this local address and I get hello world, right? So we have a local testing environment. All right, so now we're going to send it the actual payload that we had been saving from TradingView, right? So I got that, and I'm going to copy this JSON, right? So when TradingView sends us the webhook alert, it's going to look something like that, right? And so if we can work with that type of data and prove we can do it locally, then we can deploy it to the cloud. So I'm going to post to HTTP localhost, and then it's running on port 8000, and our address is called buy stock. I'm going to click send. We got our message, I bought the stock, and it returned our webhook message back to us. Great, right? So we're capable of receiving the JSON and parsing it in a dictionary. So let's go further. Let's say we want to make an order using this information, right? We've done this a bunch of times on this channel, and since it's easy, I like to use Alpaca because it's free and easy, and I already have an account. So under repositories here, some of the other videos cover Alpaca, but I also I'll use this most recent one, Alpaca bracket order, right? And this shows you how to actually create a bracket order. And so I'm going to do that. So you can get some code from here. This is just creating a normal order. And then there's this one called bracketorder.py. So it has the payload that we need. So I'm going to use this. So we're going to take the message from the webhook alert and then kind of transform it into this structure that Alpaca needs, right? So I'm going to put this in my code. I'm going to do buy stock, and I'm going to create this variable, right? Data equals this stuff, right? And in the example from the bracket URL, the bracket order video, we were using Apple, right? We don't want to use Apple, right? We want to use whatever comes in our payload here. So it's called ticker. And so we're going to do the webhook message. So I'm going to replace that, right? Webhook message. And then we're going to access the ticker. And we'll just have it by 1 every time. And then the side, we're going to have it by for now. And let's see, market. So yeah, we'll do a limit order actually, right? And then we can specify a price for the limit order, right? So I'll do a price, and I think the parameter is called limit price if you look in the documentation for Alpaca. And we'll have the limit price be, let's just say it'll be the close in this message. So we'll use the webhook message close. So we'll try to get at that price, and then take profit. We'll do the webhook message close. We can do a percentage. Let's say we want to take a profit at 1%, right? And then we'll have a stop loss of, let's say, 2%, right? Actually, ideally, I want more profit than that. I want 5% profit. And then my stop loss will be 2%. All right? So that's the data structure that Alpaca needs, right? And then how do we send the API request to Alpaca, right? So we've done this before as well. So we just need to post to the order URL and then have these keys set up, right? So Alpaca has these headers it expects. It has a base URL. And so we've already done this before. Watch the video on bracket URL or bracket orders if you want to see the details, but I'm just going to finish this because the point of this video is to show you alerts and place an order. So I'm going to do base URL. I'm going to put all this stuff at the top. So the base URL is api.alpacamarkets. So for a second, on the testing locally, I'm going to do paper API just to verify it in the paper trading account. We don't need the account URL. We do need the orders URL. So we'll have an orders URL, and we have the headers we need here. And so what we now need is an API key that you need to fill in for your Alpaca account if you want to actually try this out, and the secret key, right? And I will pull up mine. So I'm logged into my Alpaca account, and I just went to my paper trading section, and I'll show you the API key. It's just my paper trading account, so I don't care. I'm gonna delete this anyway, but I'm gonna do view. I'm gonna regenerate my key and click OK, and it should give me a key. So I'm gonna copy this API key, put it in there, secret key, copy that, put it in there. So I should have a way to hit the paper API, use these keys, use this URL, and send these headers, right? I'll go back to my GitHub repository. So all this code can be found under github.com hacking the markets, and that's going to be the name of the community here. So just be aware of that. I've changed the name, so it's github.com/hacking the markets, and I'm going to copy this part that sends a post request, and we're going to get the response. So I'm going to take that part, right? We got the data, and we have a way to send an HTTP request, and that uses the requirement that we put in our requirements.txt. We're going to send the request to our orders URL. We're going to send JSON to that orders URL and that JSON will be from this data dictionary. So JSON equals data, and the headers will be the ones we've set up here. And we're going to get a response from Alpaca. You'll notice I have a couple of red underlines here. They're syntax issues. So basically I need to import requests and JSON to use them in the script. So at the top of the script, I'm going to do import requests, JSON. And now I have those imported and I can use these. And I am going to print the response. I'm not sure what they give me back. I think they'll just give me back a 200 code. So I'll reprint response and response.content, and we'll see if this works like right out of the box. So I'm going to send my payload to my local server. It says internal server error. Oh, well, we didn't get the first time, but luckily we can debug this. I'll look at my console. A dict object has no attribute content. So looks like it doesn't have content like that. So let's print response.keys just to see what it does have. So I'm going to send it. All right. And so now you see it returned me a bunch of information. Oh, so it looks like our order actually went through. So it did go through the first time. I was just printing an attribute that isn't there. So let me see if that's the case. So I'm going to go to my paper trading account and log in with Alpaca and then look at my order history. And you see, bam, right there, real time, this actually placed orders. And so if I switch this and take out the word paper, this is going to start executing real SPY orders with real money, and we have a real working webhook URL. So you see it executed this bracket order. So that bracket order is composed of the following components, right? So we place a limit buy to see if we get filled, and it looks like it did fill. And so now we just see, we give it a stop sell and a limit sell. So those limits are in place. So we have a profit taking point. So if SPY goes to 304, we'll lock in that profit. And if it falls to 284, we're just going to cut our losses right there. So there you go. We have a locally working bracket order that's getting placed. All right. And so how do we hook this up finally to the webhook, right? So we got a webhook. We have a locally working server, right? And we have this message format. Let's go ahead and see if we can deploy this, right? I think we're ready. So I'm going to do chalice deploy. I'm going to get rid of these keys. Let's see. I'm going to return the order ID. I'm going to return this ID just to be able to test in the cloud to see if it worked. I want to return that to my Insomnia client. So I'm going to do order ID. I'm going to return both of these, ID, and you don't have to do this. I'm just going to test this out. I'm going to do response ID and what's it called? Client order ID, in case I need to reference that later. All right, response client order ID, right? And I'm going to run this again locally just for fun, just to see the response. I already stopped the server. Let's let's see, Chalice local. All right, I'm gonna run this again. All right, so I got an ID, client order ID, and it should have placed another order. So I'm gonna go into Alpaca here. And look at that, 731, we place another buy. So it's great. People are happy to sell me their SPY right now at 289. So yeah, it looks like it took a dip. And so yeah, people are happy to sell that to me right now. All right, so that is great. So that's working. And yeah, let's go ahead and deploy this. So I'm gonna do Chalice deploy, and let's see if that works from the cloud. So I'm gonna deploy it again. It's updating our Lambda function, and it gives me that URL again, right? So I'm gonna go here, and instead of localhost, I'm gonna use the actual URL in the cloud. So this is the one that TradingView will hit. So post here, API buy stock, right? And yeah, let's send it there. So let me use a slightly different price. I'm gonna use, just to make sure it's different, I'm gonna use a closing price of 59 cents at the end. So I'm gonna click that. All right, and it looks like it still worked, and it's using the cloud there. So let's see if that executed. So we go to Alpaca again, and yeah, 732, it used that 59 cent one. So we placed another order. So that's awesome. So we have a working URL, that's a webhook in the cloud, ready to go. And so now we just see if we can hook this up to TradingView. So I'm gonna go to TradingView, right? And I'm gonna go back to my chart of SPY. So I'm going back to SPY here. And full featured chart. See, I have my alerts set up still, right? And right, I'm gonna do webhook URL. I'm gonna put that buy stock webhook in there, and I'm gonna use the format we have that has the placeholders, and then those placeholders will get substituted with real price data whenever TradingView posts to this URL. So I'll save this one. And then on this one, I will make sure we do the same. Oh, that's the same one. So I'll do webhook URL here, and I'm going to paste that URL in. Where do I have that URL? Right here. Right, so I'm going to paste that URL in right here. Click save. All right. So now those should be triggering without me doing anything. So I'm going to see if that is the case. So 732 is the last one I executed manually, and let's see if it executes again. So I'm going to show the pop-up again just to see when I should receive the message. Actually, so I'm going to tweak this a little bit now that we're at 288.50 or so. I'm going to just do this crossing up. Yeah, 289.77. I'm going to change it to 288.70 just to see if I can get it to trigger. Oh, and it did trigger just then. So I got the alert, and then I should get an email, right? So I got an email at 7:35, and I checked my Alpaca account. And at 7:35, you see, oh, you can see it's placing more and more orders right now. Our alert's getting triggered. They're hitting the webhook URL in the cloud. Orders are getting filled. We have a bot running, and I can go off to work or go wherever the rest of the day. And this is just going to keep executing orders, keep watching my signals. I can use TradingView, and I can add any number of indicators here. If I know what this stuff is for swing trading, zigzag pivots, all kinds of stuff I can add to my chart, configure these alerts, set up my webhook URL, and yeah, add whatever logic I want in Chalice for my webhook URL, write a bunch of Python code, and respond to whatever happens in the market, real time, it's in the cloud, and it's automated. So actually, I'm very happy with this. So that didn't take us very long, and we figured it out as we went. So yeah, let me know if there are any questions. I'm experimenting with a variety of ways of helping people individually. So if you email me I might be able to help you further if needed. And I'm experimenting, as I mentioned, with the affiliate link. So if you want to sign up for TradingView, it'd be cool if you signed up with that link. So yeah, these alerts are going to keep going, and I'm going to turn this off before it executes like a million orders on my account. So thanks for watching the video, and stay tuned for more tutorials in the future. Thanks.